Hey, this is Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and if you just finished watching the previous video, A Brief History of Stonemaier Games, you'll probably notice a few things that are different here. So that video ended, I filmed that I believe in August 2019, and today, for our 10th anniversary celebration here at Stonemaier Games, I thought I would film part 2 of this video, catching us up from what has happened since August 2019, all the way through, right now, August 2022. A few things that have changed in the background here are that I live in a new condo now. The previous video ended in a different condo. I think I was almost moving out of that condo at the time that I filmed that old video. And this is relevant to Stonemaier Games because I run Stonemaier Games from my home office. We still don't have an official facility. Anyone who works at Stonemaier Games, and there are a few people now, that's a change that I'll reveal in a few seconds, we all work from home. And that's been the case throughout all 10 years here at Stonemaier Games. So there are two things. So most of what I'm going to talk about today are 2020, 2021, and 2022. The one thing that happened near the end of 2019 is that we released the Wingspan European expansion. 2019 was the year of Wingspan and Tapestry. And actually, Tapestry might have happened right around the time that I was filming the last video. Not sure the exact timing there, but Tapestry was a big Civilization game that I designed that came out around that time in 2019, followed by the Wingspan European expansion. And it was really exciting. We haven't done this since then, but it was really exciting to have the game come out very early in the year. Wingspan came out very early in 2019. And then the idea was to have people reminded of this wonderful game at the end of the year, so that it might be up for consideration for top 10 lists and things like that. And that's why we had the expansion come out at the end of the year. Since then, we have had other expansions released for Wingspan that I'll talk about in a minute, but not on that schedule. It has taken a while for those expansions to come out because Elizabeth Hargrave has become a very successful designer in the meantime, which is wonderful. So anyway, that was the end of 2019. For the rest of these, I have some blog posts that I wrote that I'm going to be scrolling throughout this video that talks about some of the different key milestones that happened at Stonemaier Games, key events at Stonemaier Games that happened in different months. So one of the first things that happened at the beginning of the year in 2022, and really I started to talk about it a little bit before then, was that for the first time ever at Stonemaier Games, we hired a second person. So up until this point, or second full-time person, up until this point, Morten Monrad Peterson was a part-time employee, still is a part-time employee, and he focuses most on the solo systems in our games. And there's also Alan, my co-founder, and Alan works very specifically on a few things. He reviews game submissions, game pitches, when people pitch games to us. He takes care of our healthcare system here at Stonemaier Games, and he is kind of still one of my lead local playtesters. He's great support, great to have Alan around, but he is not, he works a few hours a week. He has a family, he has a full-time job. And so for the first time in late 2019, at the beginning of 2020, we hired another full-time employee, Joe. Joe has been a gamer friend for a long time. And I thought Joe knows Stonemaier Games really, really well. And I thought Joe would do a great job at consolidating a bunch of tasks that I had previously outsourced to a wide variety of people. Things like replacement parts and customer service, communications, organizing design day. These were some tasks were things that I had, some were things that I outsourced, and I consolidated them all into a director of communications position for Joe. And it has truly been amazing to work with Joe over the last 2+ years. He's a wonderful human being, and I love the patient, compassionate way that he talks to our customers. Even every now and then I see people who talk to Joe as if he is less than human. That's very rare, but just the way that Joe is able to reply to those emails in a kind way is incredible to me to see that from Joe. And so it's been incredible to have Joe here for the last 2 years. And one of the other things that Joe has added really nicely is that my YouTube videos that I film, he has added graphics to them. So you might see some graphics on this video. Joe is the one adding those graphics. So I didn't used to do that because I don't do editing on my videos. I just press record and record them. And I think Joe has added an extra layer of polish to the videos and accessibility, because he's showing kind of what I'm talking about as I'm talking about it, instead of just having me talk to the screen. So I really appreciate Joe doing that, among the many other tasks and responsibilities and endeavors that he's helped out with at Stonemaier Games. Also early in 2020, so I'm kind of walking back through history here, we did something different. So usually we only announce the details or some details about new games and new expansions when we have already produced them and we're ready to release them. But we made an exception, and this is, I think, one of the reasons that I love how flexible Stonemaier Games is, because a really terrible thing happened. Actually, a lot of terrible things happened in 2020, but one of those terrible things was that there were rampant wildfires in Australia, and we decided to reveal very early that the next expansion for Wingspan was Wingspan Oceania. So that's Australia, New Zealand, that area of the world, because we link our pre-order signups, the number of people who sign up for launch notifications for our products. We donate $1 for each of those people to a good cause. And in this case, we thought this thing that is tied, this terrible event that is tied to the location of our next Wingspan expansion, this is happening right now. If we wait 9 months, 10 months to donate, our donation will have a much lower impact. And so let's start this now. And so we did it early. We announced the location of the new expansion very early. Didn't say anything else about it, just announced the new location, and ended up raising over 10,000 Australian dollars to donate to an organization called WIRES, a wildlife rescue organization in Australia. And doing that, this tradition of gathering pre-launch signups for new games in particular. We don't always do it for expansions, but new games, and donating $1 to one or more organizations has become a tradition that I really, really like at Stonemaier Games. Let's see, looking at February, don't have anything big happening in February of 2020. February, March was when the pandemic really hit. And a couple of things happened here at Stonemaier Games. One was our factories, the company that we work with to produce our games, it's a Canadian company that has their main factory in China. They had to shut down for a while. All of China pretty much shut down for a while. And we didn't know what was going to happen next. It was a very difficult few months for a lot of reasons, for a lot of different people. A lot of retailers had to find new ways to sell their games. Without inviting people in, because we didn't know how this disease was transmitted. We know so much about it now. We're still learning, but we didn't know very much about it then. And so everything shut down, and it was a nice opportunity. Like, our goal is to bring joy to tabletops worldwide. And I think the crucial times to bring joy are times where people are suffering and people are lonely. And one of the great things about tabletop games is that when people are secluded, when they're isolating, as we were back then, games provide a great form of entertainment and joy and distraction and escapism. And so that was a neat thing that we could provide. But it was a tough time to provide it because everything was shut down. So fortunately, after we realized that masks were really helpful, we were able to get fulfillment centers back open to ship games worldwide. Retailers started accepting orders from the front door, so they could hand off games at the door. They were doing home delivery. A lot of different interesting things happened then. A lot of creative thinking to help people get the joy of tabletop games to the table at the time where they really needed it. The other thing that emerged from that, though, is that literally one of the first weeks into the pandemic, when people were self-isolating, I was sitting around one weekend and I was like, I have a feeling that there are a lot of people who are feeling isolated and lonely right now, and I want to play games with them. I want to play games with them. And at the time, I wasn't really into Board Game Arena, which would have been a fun way to do that. But Board Game Arena is still limited by the number of people that can play any given game. And so I was like, I want to design an infinitely scaling game that anyone can just print off at home, and we can play it right now. We can just pop on Facebook Live and play it. And so I designed a game called Rolling Realms. And the core idea of the game is that it's infinitely scalable. Any number of players can play. There's no interaction between players at all by design, because it's fully infinitely scalable and remotely playable as long as one player is rolling the dice. And I started playtesting it on Facebook Live with hundreds of people in real time. It was awesome. Like, hundreds of people were joining in to play this thing live. and offering playtest feedback in real time. And so the game kept getting better and better and better. And what eventually emerged a few months later is that I liked the game so much, even though I really truly did not intend to publish this game, it became something that I wanted to make. I wanted to make a printed version of it. So we ended up making Rolling Realms later in the year. This is Rolling Realms. I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but this game that was not intended to be a printed game became a printed game, and one of my favorite, really my favorite and most played Stonemaier games, because I still play it via these live play sessions all the time. We'll come back to that a little bit later because there are other things that emerge from Rolling Realms. But yeah, that was in a very difficult and dark time for the world. That brought me a lot of joy, and it helped me connect with a lot of people, and hopefully help people connect with each other and with me through this game. Yeah, that was March of 2020. In April, we did something for the first time. We did a few things in April. A few big things happened in April. One is that we did something for April Fools. So traditionally, personally, I enjoy April Fools quite a bit, as long as people aren't getting hurt by the pranks. I like fooling someone for just a little bit, a little moment where they're a little bit fooled, and then life moves on. You haven't inconvenienced them to any big way. And so I've always wanted to do something for April Fools for Stonemaier games, but I've never wanted to confuse customers. And so we decided to, and this was well before April. We had to plan ahead maybe 6 months in advance. This was before the pandemic. This was before anything had really started in terms of the dark things that happened in the world in 2020. We made two silly but real products for April Fools. One, we made a magnifying glass, kind of poking fun at how some of our games have icons or text that is a little bit too small for a lot of people to see, or maybe the contrast isn't good enough, something that we've been working on since then. So we made a magnifying glass, and we also made plastic trays to hold Wingspan eggs, but specifically not Wingspan eggs, but actually candy eggs. We weren't selling the candy eggs. We were selling these chocolate-colored trays so that you can know if you're playing Wingspan around Easter time that you have your plastic eggs in these trays that look different than these other trays that have the candy, the chocolate eggs. So it was a fun little thing that we did. A tradition that we've continued. You'll see me talk about this in the future as well. But it wasn't a profit-seeking venture. We were hoping to kind of make our money back. But instead, we realized that at that time, a lot of people's careers had just stopped because of the pandemic. Like, they could not physically go to work. And I think a lot of people were hurting at the time. And so what we did is I basically sent out a notice to anyone who had supported Stonemaier games in the past, anyone who had bought our games at any point in the past. And I said, if you've supported us, we want to support you in this very difficult time. If you need money right now because of what the pandemic how the pandemic has impacted your life, let us know if you want $100, $200, or $300, and we will use the proceeds that we've earned, the profits, or really the revenue, because we went well over the profits, the revenue from these April Fool's products, and we will give it to you. And we did that. We gave away $14,000 to people who said, I need this money. We didn't ask for justification or a reason. The only stipulation, not stipulation, but the idea was, if you've supported us, then we want to support you right now. So it wasn't something that was intended to be shared with a bunch of random people, rather Stonemaier Games supporters specifically. But yeah, we gave away $14,000 to people who I think were really hurting at that time. And hopefully it gave them a little boost, a little moment of realizing that there are people out there that care about them and that we're thinking about them. So that was April Fool's. Also in April, we released the My Little Scythe expansion. That was the release date for it. We had My Little Scythe Pie in the Sky, which added a shared airship and some asymmetric abilities to My Little Scythe. We also had one of the unfortunate things that happened in April is that we started seeing counterfeit Wingspans pop up all over the place, and it later inspired us to add some counterfeit counterfeit prevention measures to our games, including something called Amazon transparency. That's just one way, but we started to see a lot of these counterfeit games show up on Amazon, but also some stores like, I think, Taobao and other stores like that. We still see them from time to time, but that was the start of it. Started seeing a lot of Wingspan counterfeits, unfortunately. Let's see. I've been just scrolling through looking at the different months for 2020. So in June, we released the Scythe Complete Rulebook. This was something that we had worked on for a while, of consolidating all the rules of Scythe because we had already declared Scythe to be final. And so since we knew there was no new Scythe content, we could release a rulebook that was truly a complete rulebook. So we combined all the different rules of Scythe into one consolidated rulebook where all the factions are in one place. All the different mech abilities are in one place. You have the full Rise of Fenris rulebook in there. You have FAQs in there. It's a big rulebook. We released a spiral-bound version, and I don't think it was quite at the same time. Yeah, we later released a hardcover version as well. This was also, again, another dark time. Not that this was a singular event, but it was a crucial event. But in June of 2020, some things happened in the world, specifically in the U.S., some police brutality against a black person in the U.S. That really started upping, I don't want to say the awareness, but activism in the board game community to do a better job, to do what we can do to better improve diversity, equity, and inclusion, to make the world and the gaming community in particular, the gaming industry, a more diverse place. This was a tough time for me personally, because while those are principles and values and philosophies that I really, truly, fully embrace, I was trying to figure out the difference between passively supporting those things, being passively supported by having, say, characters of different ethnicities in our games, versus being actively inclusive and seeking active diversity. There's a big difference between those two. And I struggled, I think, at that time to figure out the differences between those two things. And it led to some mistakes that I think have impacted people's view of me long term. And that's okay. I understand that a person's actions are permanent and can't be undone. But it's unfortunate because I think a lot of the people that maybe struggled with my actions or lack of actions at the time are the same people that believe the same things that I believe about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But anyway, it was a time of action and a time of not just one-time action, but a time of making permanent changes at Stonemaier Games to be a lot more active in terms of actively including people, actively diversifying, and actively seeking equity in the industry for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. This was the start of it, and it continues throughout the next two plus years. It continues to this day. It will continue in the future, but that was the start of it back in June of 2020. And it should have started far before that. It shouldn't have taken something like that to start that activism, but that was the impetus for it. In July, we had our one new release of 2020, and that was Pendulum. This is a game by Travis Jones. This was a little bit of a risk for us because this is it's a simultaneous action game, which I love, but it also has timers in it. It has a timer mode. The primary mode of playing this game is timer. It's an engine building game, but it has this simultaneous worker placement system in it as well, using these timers. I love what Travis built for this game. Pendulum ended up being one of our least well-received games. And I learned a lot from making it. One of the production mistakes I think I made for this game is that I used plastic meeples and plastic tokens instead of wooden meeples and wooden tokens, and people definitely did not seem to like that. And so that was one thing that I learned from this game. But it's a game that we loved. Obviously, we put all of our effort for 2020 into this one game, and Pendulum was our release for that year. So that was Pendulum. That was in July of 2020. Also, we'll start to see this. This is a pattern over the next few years. We finally had a full AI digital game from Stonemaier Games, and that was Viticulture Digital. Viticulture from Digidiced was the first full AI version of any of our games, unless I'm forgetting one that happened before that. But this became a thing. The pandemic kind of really sped up this effort for Stonemaier Games to have our games accessible in digital formats, not just on the tabletop. So many of our games are available on Tabletopia, which is a physics-driven engine. We now have multiple games available in full AI version, so where you can play against an opponent who understands, a digital opponent who understands the rules of the game, or where the game itself understands the rules of the game. Viticulture was the first. There are others to come. Off the top of my head, Tapestry is still in the works. That one hasn't happened yet. Wingspan has had a very successful digital version. Between Two Castles, Between Two Cities has a digital version. Charterstone has a great digital version, full AI digital version. And at the same time, we also started working with Board Game Arena on some of these games. I'll talk about that a little bit later, unless I forget. In August, we had Tapestry, a Tapestry expansion, the first expansion for Tapestry, Plans and Ploys. This was an expansion that added a little bit more interaction, a little bit more mischievous nature to Tapestry, but it was mostly also a more stuff expansion. More Tapestry cards, more tech cards, more civilizations, and we added one new thing, landmark cards to Tapestry Plans and Ploys, where you start off with a little goal, and when you achieve that goal, you get a special landmark that only you could ever get in the game, and you put that in your capital city. That was Tapestry Plans and Ploys in August of 2020. Also, so at the beginning of 2020, we added our second employee. And again, I was not seeking to grow the employees. This isn't an area of Stonemaier Games where I seek to expand or grow. I like to find talented people who can do very specific tasks and do that one task really, really well. But I realized around this time, August of 2020, that we would benefit greatly if we brought over our liaison who was working at Greater Than Games. So Greater Than Games, my friend Alex was working there, and he was our liaison for Stonemaier Games, with Greater Than Games handling our distribution brokerage at the time. But I realized that it would be much more potent, I think, if we had someone internally handling that distribution brokerage instead of an external company. We still work with Greater Than Games as our St. Louis and US warehouse and fulfillment center, and oftentimes they receive games and ship them to distributors. But instead of having them handle the transactions or them handle the relationships with distributors, we now brought that in-house with Alex. Alex became our director of sales and internal brokerage here at Stonemaier Games. His title has changed since then to Director of Sales and Logistics because he ended up handling a lot of freight shipping things as well during that time. But yeah, Alex joined us as our third full-time employer, second of 2020. And that has continued to this day. Our full-time employees to this day are me, Joe, and Alex. There are a few other people that I'll mention later on, but not full-time employees. Alex, just like Joe, has been wonderful, wonderful addition to Stonemaier Games. We had our charity auction as we usually do in October. I won't mention that from year to year, but we do an annual charity auction still in October. And I think we've done that every year since 2013. 2013 was the first charity auction. Last in November, we released the Wingspan Oceania expansion. So despite the pandemic, this is actually a pretty big year for us. We only had one game, but we had a lot of big expansions. Pie in the Sky for My Little Scythe, Tapestry Plans and Ploys, and Wingspan Oceania. And that was a major release of November in November of 2020. That is 2020, so let's jump ahead to 2021. In 2021, this was a key addition. We added a bookkeeper for the first time, which doesn't seem particularly exciting, but Joe, Alex, and I all realized in our year-end reviews that our least favorite part of our jobs was end-of-month bookkeeping. And we realized that someone could do it better and more efficiently and more precisely and sync it better with our accountants if we hired a bookkeeper. So it's been, I look back on this, it's something that I love that Stephanie at Timely Totals handles now, the bookkeeping at Stonemaier Games. I'm so grateful that she came on to do that in 2021. She is an independent contractor who does this for multiple companies, but she does it for us in a wonderful way. One thing that we did add, and I have a note about this in January, we started doing in January of 2021 is we started celebrating the anniversaries/birthdays of our games. And I've really enjoyed doing that ever since then. So whenever we have I did it recently for Scythe and My Little Scythe, they had their retail release date anniversaries. And I talk about it, I celebrate it. I encourage people to play the games then to celebrate the birthdays. And it's really neat to see people post on social media because that's how I see it. But people kind of coming together to say, hey, Scythe, that's awesome. I haven't played Scythe in a few months or a few years even. I'm going to play it today. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to share it on social media. I'm going to celebrate this thing. Celebrating together with people feels really good. And so I've continued doing that for all of our games since then. February was a major announcement. We announced Red Rising. So Red Rising is a novel series that I love that I ended up designing a game for with Alex, my coworker Alex. This is before he was my coworker. And we announced it in February. We raised money to support the ACLU as part of our launch sign-up notification. And this was one of the big things, probably the biggest thing that happened in February. And actually, I said earlier that Rolling Realms released in 2020. It didn't. Rolling Realms ended up being a 2021 release. I'll get to that later. But yeah, Red Rising, it was really, really exciting to finally release this game that I'd worked on for a long time. Worked on the game itself, failing multiple times, eventually succeeding, then struggling to actually get the rights, which we thought we had and then we didn't have, but we finally made it come through. And it was the first game that we offered, first game in a while that we offered a collector's edition of and also a retail version of. We didn't sell the retail version directly. We sold that only through retailers. So that was Red Rising early in 2021. This was also the year where we started, and this is kind of a behind the scenes thing, but you may have noticed it, where instead of just having one web store, we slowly created offshoot web stores. So we have Stonemaier Games web stores for the US and worldwide, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Europe. And these are all linked to our 4 different fulfillment centers. By doing this, it means that the inventory for each of these different fulfillment centers is linked to the specific web store. And so in the past, like if you ordered from, because we only had one set of inventory in the US store, if you ordered a game on our web store, if you're in Canada and you ordered My Little Scythe, but My Little Scythe wasn't actually in stock in Canada, then we'd have to go back to you and say, I'm sorry, you ordered it from our general inventory pool, but it wasn't available in Canada. Sorry about that. We fixed that now. We now have one web store per fulfillment center so that you can get your own specific inventory levels, and you also get pricing in your local currency, which I think is helpful for a lot of people. What else do we do? Looks like April was when we started working with Tim Chuan, which Tim is an incredibly talented photographer, and Tim has photographed all of our games since then. He's really, we loved working with Kim Euchre before that as well. Kim was great too. Tim added a new level of flair to our photographs, so we really liked working with Tim on all of our games since 2021. In May of 2021, we released the first and only expansion to Between Two Castles, the Secrets and Soirees expansion. I love secret rooms in general and like real life, and I love that we were able to add them to Between Two Castles. So that was an expansion that we added to that game then. We also started working with a cultural consultant in May of 2021 to ensure that nothing in any of our games, anything in progress games, were going to cause unintended harm to anyone who was playing those games. So that's been ran into some interesting things in the future with cultural consulting, but that worked out for a while in May of 2021. We also added a 20-day price guarantee on our web store back in 2021. So if you order a game today and then a week later you see that we offer that same product on sale, we'll give you the difference back for free, because we never want someone to wait to buy something that they're really excited about just because they think there might be a better price later. In June, we started, so usually we work on products very behind the scenes and we don't announce them until we've actually made them. I broke from that strategy for the Wingspan nesting box. This is a box that we haven't released yet. We started working on it way back in June of 2021. We'll release it later in 2022. But this is a box to hold all present, past, and future components for Wingspan. And I started working on it very publicly. So I would get a prototype from Panda, and I would share photos of it and talk about it on our website, on the Wingspan Facebook group, get feedback on it, and then iterate a new version. This process went on for months, very publicly, making the best version of the nesting box possible. It's hard to appeal to everyone. People have different opinions about what this box should be. But I think this public process for this very public game, this game that a lot of people have played at this point, really helped the Wingspan nesting box become a great product that I'm excited to reveal, or I have revealed it, but we're excited to release it in the future. In June, we also updated our proofreading and oversight measures that we have at Stonemaier Games. This is something that I think we've struggled with a little bit over the years, where even though we have multiple proofreaders looking at any game, they often are looking things out of context, or only looking at our games from a little slice of one of our games, rather than like they're looking at the game at that moment, rather than all the different files for that game that have been processed, so they can find things that maybe were accidentally omitted or that existed at some previous time and don't exist now. And so now we have a designated proofreading and oversight team that has access to all the files from start to finish for all of our games. And I think that has really, really helped catch things that we wouldn't have otherwise caught in our games. We also started our library outreach in June of 2021, where we officially have a way for libraries to buy our games at a discount, to have our games on their shelves, to reach more people, to bring joy to people who don't want to buy the games, but want to check them out, or at least try them from a library first. July was a time where we actually got some of our games in Target. This is something that Alex had been working on. We got Red Rising and Wingspan into Target, which was a big thing, a big step for us to try here at Stonemaier Games. This was also the first time that we had one of our games show up on Board Game Arena. This is when Viticulture showed up on Board Game Arena in July of 2021. This is also when we started offering signed cards on our web store. So every few months now, I get a bunch of cards that are linked to games that I've designed, and I sign these cards and we put them on the web store. And you can add one card to your order. Whenever you order from Stonemaier Games, you can add a card. It's a random card. You can't select which card or which game the card comes from, but you can get a signed card from me if that's something that you value. And I think people have had fun with that ever since then. That was July of 2021. So August is when I officially announced Rolling Realms, the tabletop version of Rolling Realms, August of 2021. And the other thing that I announced for it at the time, which was a surprise for people, was that, and maybe I didn't quite announce it, maybe I announced it a little bit later after that, but we announced that we were going to make promos for this game. We were going to expand the game. And I realized at the time, something I didn't realize before, I didn't plan for it before, but that Rolling Realms is essentially a living card game. In Rolling Realms, to play the game, you just combine 3 different realms. You pick 3 different realms at random, and all players use those realms. And so you can have any number of cards. As long as you have the same cards for all players, you can add new realms. And so whenever we release a new game, we're going to add a realm for that game. But also, we realized that we could add realms for other games like Terra Mystica. And so we started, that was the first announcement, that we were going to have realms based on non-Stonemaier games, which is not something I planned for, but it came from our German publishing partner said, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? And we tried it, and it was awesome. And so we're continuing to do that, including a few new realms that you now know about, a Feast for Odin realm and a Honeybuzz realm. And we have a lot more in the works on the way for Rolling Realms. So didn't intend for Rolling Realms to become an expandable card game like this. It's not a random game, just an expandable kind of a living card game. But it has become that, and I'm really excited about that. 2021 was also, so we've always been, I think, an environmentally aware company. But similar to some of the BIPOC stuff that I mentioned earlier, we weren't all that actively pursuing making our games more eco-friendly. But we were inspired by Andrew Navarro of Earthborn Games. Andrew had some, he released a Kickstarter for a game that he was trying to make truly as eco-friendly and as sustainable as possible. Really inspired me, started doing a lot of research into the topic, and it started a major push for us and our partnership with Panda to make our games more eco-friendly, which ended up, those things come to fruition later in Stonemaier Games, but that was when we really started doing that, looking at things like plastic and shrink wrap and where our wood sources are coming from, where our cardboard is coming from, the type of recycled materials that we use, all that stuff. Started thinking about that and talking about that in 2021. What else happened in 2021? Any other big exciting things that happened? Did our charity auction again. Had our Design Day event. So we didn't do Design Day. We did a virtual Design Day in 2020. Design Day is a playtesting event that we run at Stonemaier Games. We didn't do that in 2020 because of the pandemic. We did a virtual one instead. We did an in-person event back in 2021 at Pieces Board Game Bar and Cafe and had a wonderful time. It was great to be back with people. We wore masks inside. It was very safe. No one got COVID from it, as far as I know. It was also a time where people were finally fully vaccinated and also getting boosters for the vaccinations, which was awesome. In November of 2021, we released the Arts and Architecture expansion for Tapestry, or this is when we announced it. And we did the pre-order soon after that. This was a big expansion that we did for the game with co-designer Mike Young. Mike had some awesome ideas that he posted on Board Game Geek about Tapestry, and I ended up really liking them. And we made this pretty robust expansion that I think has been very well received by people. That was the second expansion to Tapestry, and we started thinking about at the time, what do we want to do next? Is there more for Tapestry, or is this it? And we decided to make one more expansion. So we have one more expansion in the works for Tapestry that will close kind of the trilogy of expansions for the game. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but this is something that we started talking about back in November of 2021. This was also the time that freight shipping got kind of crazy. So it was evolving over the course of the year, but freight shipping containers that were once costing around $4,000 to ship from China to St. Louis were now costing as much as $30,000. And so this was when we started to be like, okay, this is significantly changing how this whole infrastructure for our games works. We didn't necessarily have a solution for it at the time. We still don't really have a solution for it, but we fully realized how much it was impacting us. Our estimate is that freight shipping increases cost us around $1 million in profit in 2021. Also, the last thing in December is that Wingspan crossed the 1 million copies sold threshold. That was an incredible thing to happen. So excited for Elizabeth that her game sold 1 million copies as of December 2021. Oh, and last, we also added a diversity and equity and inclusion consultant, Lydia Waymeyer, in 2021. So that was very late in 2021 where we added Lydia to our team as a consultant for making sure that we are doing our best efforts every day, every week, every month for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'll be back to finish this video in a few minutes. We're going to do a quick cut, and then I'll come back to finish this for 2022 and the future. I'll be back in a second. All right, we're on to 2022 now, the current year. I'm filming this in late August of 2022, so I have a lot of the year to cover. We started out with, I mentioned this earlier, that I've started doing live plays for Rolling Realms. This is something that we hadn't done up until this point, live plays of games, other than the playtesting for Rolling Realms originally. And I started doing this thing on the Rolling Realms Facebook channel, where I would play a round of the game live. And this brought me a lot of joy to do, and I think people are having fun with it. I'm still doing it to this day. I just finished game 32, live play game 32 of Rolling Realms recently. But it's great that the game doesn't need to be played at any given time. So I film these live. Some people do play along live, but I then put them up on YouTube, and anyone can play the game against me at any time. I think that's kind of fun. The idea of, well, hopefully it's fun for people to play against the designer, but also to essentially solo play a game, but feel like you're playing with other people. I think that's really cool as well. So I've had a lot of fun doing that. In late January of 2022, my dad died. Which I know is a very personal thing to mention here, but my dad had a really positive impact on me and defining, he helped define who I am today, and I'm a big part of Stonemaier Games. And so losing him was very difficult, but I hope that his legacy of treating people with compassion and kindness and understanding and patience lives on in me and in Stonemaier Games in many ways. So I try to think about that when I think about the ways that I want to treat people at Stonemaier Games, the ways that I want to bring joy to tabletops, the way that I want to include people and treat people with kindness every day. And I think of my dad when I do that. That was late January. Soon afterward, we hired not another full-time person at Stonemaier Games, but another part-time person, and that was Susanna. One of the things that we've been working on here is increasing our direct retailer outreach, because we've heard over the years been surprised with over the years, especially with Wingspan, that we would make a giant batch of Wingspan, as much as any distributors asked us to make, and then we would still hear from small local brick and mortar stores that they didn't get any copies of Wingspan. And so more and more, we started to directly serve those retailers. We said, okay, that's bewildering to us that you aren't getting a copy from your distributor, so we'll sell it to you directly. We'll send you a case. We'll sell you a few copies. Whatever you need, we'll sell it to you directly. And we realized that this hand in hand with distribution is a great way to serve all retailers, at least all retailers in the US. We are slowly expanding that program to other countries as well, other regions as well. And so Susanna came on to be our retailer relationship manager. And she's been wonderful. Susanna was someone that we essentially all met at a local convention, Geekway to the West, in the fall of 2021. We played games with her. We really, really liked her. And we actually had several great applicants for the retail relationship manager program, but we ended up choosing Susanna. And it is a little bit nice that Susanna's here in St. Louis. She's a member of our game group, and so we get to play games with Susanna as well. So that's been a great addition. And at the same time, we also made a transition to consolidate our distribution in the US to work with GTS for hobby game distribution, for Flat River to sell to big online stores like Amazon and Walmart, and also big box retailers, and to we sell through PSI a little bit to Barnes and Noble. We also still sell games like Wingspan to wildlife distributors. There are stores that sell specifically to wildlife stores, so we still work with them as well. And in Canada, we also consolidated our distribution to a company called Universal. I know this is very behind-the-scenes, nitty-gritty stuff, but it was a big step for us to do this, and we were nervous about doing this, but it gave us a lot more control over how we can best serve retailers and best serve consumers in ways that we didn't have that control over before, when we were just selling a bunch of games to different distributors in the US and in Canada. Soon after that, I mentioned 2020 was a really rough year. 2022 hasn't been much better because Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia tried to conquer Ukraine. As of August, Russia has not succeeded in this goal, fortunately. And we made a very early statement, one of the first statements made by any board game company, that we stood with Ukraine, that we were bewildered that Russia would decide to invade another country with the intent of conquering it. And we made a very strong statement about that in support of Ukraine, and we made the very difficult decision to stop working with two longtime partners in Russia, longtime publishing partners, who are run by wonderful people that we respect and support and miss. Basically the idea is that sanctions have power. When you sanction a company, a region, a country for really terrible things they're doing, the way that a company can do that is by not economically supporting that country. So it really hurts that we're doing this or that we have done this. We're still doing this to our longtime partners in Russia, and we look forward to hopefully rekindling those relationships if Russia stops invading Ukraine. But that was a big thing that happened and is still going on to this day. And that was how Stonemaier Games acted as a result. Right around this time, we reached a key threshold of over 11,000 Stonemaier champions. So it was back in 2018, I believe, 4 years ago, that we started the Stonemaier Champion Program, which is a membership program that has evolved over the years. But the basic idea is that you pay a certain amount a year. Right now it's $15 a year, where that gives you 20% off anything that you buy from Stonemaier Games. And you also get prioritized shipping. So if one person buys the game and they're a champion, and another person buys the game at the same time and they're not a champion, the champion order will ship first. The non-champion order will probably ship very soon after that as well. But for pre-orders, that really matters, that all the champion orders within each region ship first. That program has been really fruitful for us, and hopefully also fruitful for people who have decided to support our games through that program. And it's been 4 years plus now, now that I'm filming this in August. What happened soon after that? A little thing that I really like that we did around this time is that there was some discussion online, I think, about actually, I won't even go to that part, but it was very loosely, it was about companies not hiring a diverse array of people. And I think those comments were really short-sighted because game companies are usually only one or two people. Like, the game companies are very small in terms of their full-time employees. However, game companies rely on a lot of other people to bring their games to life. And they're, proofreaders and playtesters and just the whole array, graphic designers and artists and accountants, and there's so many people that are involved in the process of making our games. And I thought it was really short-sighted to overlook all those people. And so I decided to ask all those people who impact Stonemaier games every day if we could feature their photos on our website to show people just how many people impact our company. And so if you go to the staff page at Stonemaier Games now, you can see, not everyone, because not everyone gave us a photo to use for that, but you can see a lot of the nearly 140 different people all over the world, of different ages and ethnicities and genders and creeds and sexualities, and great diversity of people who impact and have a positive impact on Stonemaier Games every day. You can see the faces of those people, which I think is really important, to actually see the faces of the people who build the things that we use every day. Pigtailing off of that, soon afterward, we announced Libertalia Winds of Galecrest. This is the first time that we've ever created our own edition of an existing game. The original Libertalia is a game that I adored, and I've kind of always, in the back of my head, wondered what it would be like to update Libertalia in a variety of different ways. And we really did kind of rebuild the game from the ground up. It still uses the same core mechanisms, but I worked with the designer Paolo to develop the game and update the game, because this game ended up coming out 10 years after the original Libertalia. And there's a lot that we've learned about game design since then. And so it was a lot of fun to work with Paolo to expand the game, to improve the game, to change it in a number of ways. And it was really exciting to put this out there to the world. Also learned a lot about what happens when you release a new edition of a beloved game, because some of the things that people loved about the original game are not things that I wanted to copy over into the new version. A lot of people were very attached to the Pirates of the Caribbean style art of the original game. I wanted something that was a little less grim and dark, something more bright and cheery and inviting for the new version. But as it turns out, a lot of people were really attached to that original art. So this new art may have turned off some of those people, but hopefully it has invited other people into the world of Libertalia and Galecrest through the new art from a wonderful artist named Lamaro Smith. April Fools. I mentioned that we've started doing April Fools products. I don't think we did one for 2021, but in 2022, we did something that has actually continued to this day, which is during the pandemic, I got really into playing disc golf, and I thought it would be fun. Well, I discovered during that time that a lot of board gamers play disc golf, and I also thought that a lot of gamers who don't play disc golf might really enjoy it, because it's essentially a big outdoor dexterity game. And so we decided to partner with Innova, which is a major disc golf company. They make disc golf discs. And to partner with Innova to make custom discs, one disc based on each different Stonemaier game. Because with disc golf, you may not realize this if you don't play disc golf, but every disc is different. There are discs made for putting, or discs made for long distance throwing. There are discs that are made to curl to the left, or discs that are made to curl to the right. All these different types of discs. And so I kind of talked to all my disc golf friends, and we have these signature discs now, where there's like a Jamie Stegmaier signature disc that's based on Scythe, and it's a very specific disc that you can buy on our web store. And we started doing that for April Fools, and we sold out within like 30 minutes. Like, it blew my mind how fast these discs sold out. I didn't know if anyone would care about them at all. And so we've continued to reprint them since then. I think we've gone through almost 4 reprints, maybe even 5 for some of the discs, as we continue to create them and put them out there. That's been a lot of fun, and it's been awesome to learn how many gamers are also disc golfers, and also how many gamers are trying disc golf for the first time because of these discs, or at least maybe partially because of these discs. So that was April Fool's Day for this year. Viticulture expansion. So we announced a new expansion for Viticulture World. This is a cooperative expansion for Viticulture, and the comparison that I put to it is Orleans Invasion, and also a little bit, or a lot really, of Spirit Island, where in Spirit Island you are playing against different invaders in Spirit Island. Viticulture World isn't that antagonistic. Rather, you are playing within one of 7 different continents, 8 with the first game promo pack. But yeah, Viticulture World we announced earlier this year as one of our first big, robust cooperative expansion. We've had other cooperative modules in a few other expansions up to this point. And a lot of things kind of accompanied this release. One thing that accompanied it is that kind of late in the process for this game, I realized that it was maybe I realized the introductory game was a little bit too hard. So somewhat at the last minute, I redesigned the introductory continent to make a new first game continent that we made and printed for this game. Then, a few weeks or maybe a few months later, I heard from some reviewers whose opinions I really, really value, that they were really hurt that we included some conquistadors in the game, which isn't something that I had thought much about up to that point, because conquistadors did bring, there were some historical figures in the game, and conquistadors, a few terrible ones in particular, brought winemaking to South America. What I hadn't thought about was, well, there's a lot of context here, but our cultural consultant, which I mentioned earlier in the video, had brought this to light, and she said her recommendation was, don't shine a positive light onto these conquistadors that you have in the game. You have these two conquistadors, don't shine a positive light onto them. And so we added a big disclaimer at the beginning of the South American continent to say like that we do not condone what these terrible people did, but they did contribute to winemaking in the region, so that's why they're in this game. What we should have done, though, and what I should have realized on my own without any consulting at all, was that we should have just removed them from the game and added 2 other people to the game. And we realized that way too late, basically, after we'd already made the game. And so I posted about that. I shared that information. Maggie and Amy shared that information on the Thinker Themer channel, and we ended up printing a little pack of cards that replaced the conquistadors in the game. And it was a major effort, because not only did we want to include these games with every order from our web store, but also every order from a retailer or distributor. And so we made 25,000 copies of these little packs that are available everywhere. If you play this game, play Viticulture World, so you can replace the conquistadors with different people. So that was a big thing for us to do, and it unfortunately overshadowed one of the things that I was really excited about for Viticulture World, which was, and it coincided with Pride Month, which is that for the first time ever in viticulture, we had, instead of only having men on blue cards and women on pink cards, we switched them up. So in Viticulture World, you have men on pink cards and women on blue cards, which means that when you get your red and blue card pairing, formerly Mama and Papa pairing, when you get your red and blue card pairing, you can have 2 women or 2 men. You can also have a man and a woman. That was a big thing for us to do, a big problem that I think it had existed with viticulture for a long time that I hadn't thought of a solution for. I finally did. And it was overshadowed by the other mistake made in Viticulture World, but yeah, that was a big thing that I was excited to share with the world. What happened next in 2022? Started a book club. So my book, so this is a little bit maybe more about me than Stonemaier Games, but it is tied to the ongoing blog that I still keep to this day. I still write a blog 2 times a week on the Stonemaier Games blog in support of my fellow creators. So I write a post about entrepreneurship or crowdfunding or the creative process. And I decided in 2022 to revisit my book, which I wrote back in 2014, A Crowdfunder Strategy Guide, and do a bi-weekly book club, chapter by chapter, where we talk about it and kind of update it for 2022, because it's been 8 years since I wrote it. So that's been a lot of fun to do. Started that earlier this year. I'm almost finished with it now. We'll do the final 2 chapters in just a few weeks now, probably around the time this video goes live. We also started for the first time a Discord channel. So we've been, ever since expanding to Instagram a few years ago, I've been hesitant to add yet another form of social media to Stonemaier Games, because it's a lot to maintain. It's a lot for Joe now as our director of communications to keep an eye on all the different questions that pop up on the forums, the Facebook groups, the Board Game Geek, Twitter. He doesn't do Instagram, but yeah. And so we added Discord, though, because we realized that there are some people that just don't use Facebook anymore. And as much as I love the Facebook groups and all the cool stuff that's shared in the Facebook groups, I want to be able to reach the people who prefer some other format. And so we added Discord. You can find in our e-newsletter, we have a link to our Discord channel. It's open for any Stonemaier fan to join and to participate in the discussions there. There are some really fun discussions there, and it's a great place to ask questions about certain games and get answers about them there. So we have that in the, we have a Stonemaier Games Discord now. What else did we do in early 2022? Similar to Wingspan Oceania, we also decided to reveal the next Wingspan expansion a little bit early because we'd already revealed the nesting box, what we were working on. We decided to reveal Wingspan Asia a little bit early too and start gathering launch notification signups for that so we can make a bigger donation to multiple organizations. I did forget that we did make a donation to 3 different organizations for Libertalia Winds of Galecrest. So we're doing the same for Wingspan Asia. As of filming this video, we haven't released Wingspan Asia. That'll be later in the year. That'll be the last big thing, I think, of 2022. But we did announce it a little bit earlier. Gen Con happened this year, so we don't, well, I want to phrase this carefully because I messed this up in the past, but I haven't attended Gen Con in a long time, but we've partnered with MeepleSource over the last few years. MeepleSource does a wonderful job at Gen Con, and they both sell and represent our products in a really amazing way at a MeepleSource/Stonemaier Games booth at Gen Con. And they did that. They haven't been there the last 2 years because of COVID, but they returned in 2022, had a great big booth, 38 different volunteers organized by Darian, a Stonemaier Games ambassador. And I heard great things about it, where we had an early copy of the nesting box there. We had promos for Rolling Realms. We supported the BIPOC Lounge, the Black Indigenous People of Color Lounge at Gen Con 2022. Just a lot of great things I heard from everyone who attended Gen Con this year. Soon after that, we announced another major endeavor here. I don't have a visual example, unfortunately, right here, but it's on our website, where we announced that some of those eco-friendly efforts that I announced earlier were finally coming to fruition. It takes time, I found, to get these things right in a sustainable way. Like you can do some things quickly, but if you want something to be sustainable, you have to do it right. And so we've been working with Panda over the last year to achieve 2 different things. One was having Panda be FSC certified, and that means that and really, I don't care about the certification at all. What I care about is that the wood that we use in our games is forested in a sustainable way. And that is the goal of FSC. Their intent, I don't think they always accomplish it, but their intent is to find forests that are sustainably forested so that those trees will grow back in a way that is good for the environment, and where in the future they might be forested again. That's the wonderful thing about trees. They can grow back, and they're good for the world, good for nature, good for the environment. And so Panda is now FSC certified. And so all of our cardboard and wood components moving forward will be forested in a sustainable way. So I think that's great. Also, Wingspan has a fair amount of, for a game that is about birds, that has this natural theme to it, has a fair amount of plastic in it. And so we've been working on getting rid of that plastic. And so we have now replaced all of the plastic bags with biodegradable plastic bags. They're made out of corn material instead of oil. We've replaced all the plastic eggs. Yes, all the eggs in Wingspan were formerly made out of plastic. We've replaced them with wooden eggs that are exactly the same in every way. They look and feel exactly the same. And we also replaced the plastic trays and the plastic containers in Wingspan with pulp cardboard containers. You have to see photos of them. They look really, really nice. The lid doesn't close quite as tight as the original plastic lids. That's one of the benefits of plastic. The lids just close better with plastic. They seal better. But otherwise, the trays look better, and they take up actually less space than the original Wingspan plastic trays. And yeah, I'm really happy with how they turned out. It was a major endeavor, a major expense to make this happen. But I'm happy with the results. And those trays will start to show up in Wingspan Asia and future printings of Wingspan and other Wingspan expansions. What else has happened in 2022? We're getting up to the current date. Okay, so yeah, these are some things that I actually have not revealed as of the recording of this, but as we're watching this, I will have revealed these things. So one of the things is that we have made a new edition, a consolidated edition, really, of Between Two Cities. This is the Between Two Cities Essential Edition. This combines the core game of Wingspan, not of Wingspan, of Between Two Cities with the expansion, the Capitals expansion. So if you own Between Two Cities and Capitals, you already have all this stuff. I think the only thing that you won't have is the score pad. We got rid of the score board and added a score pad instead. You can download that from our website if you want. But everything else is the same. The gameplay is the same. And we've also decided with Ben and Matthew, the designers, that the core game of Between Two Cities from now on will include two of the elements of Capital. So one of them will be considered an advanced element. But those two elements are the landscape mats and the what's the other one? I think and the new tile type. What are the new tile types called? Forgetting the new tile types. But there was a new tile type that was introduced in Capitals, and that is now just part of the tile types that are shuffled into Between Two Cities. The districts are the advanced element. But anyway, I'm really excited to do this. You can see new box art here. And yeah, so in the future, I will have announced this a few days ago. The other thing that we announced, other than the promos, which I already mentioned, the new promos for Rolling Realms, is that we announced a new game that I designed. This is a little small cooperative game because I found that I really enjoy playing cooperative games with Megan. And so I thought, we don't normally publish games that don't scale up to 5 players, but if there were any time to do so, to do something a little bit different, it would be our 10th anniversary, and it would be something that we give to customers for free. So anyone who orders anything from our web store during September of 2022, you'll get this game for free. So if you're watching this video well in the future, hopefully we still have this game in stock. We are going to sell it on our website after that. But as a gift to our customers, a show of appreciation for people who have supported us or support our products, we're giving this to you. This is Smitten. This is a 2-player, also 1 to 2 player. There's a solo mode in it too. A 1 to 2 player cooperative game that has cards that are inspired by a little Stonemaier game. So we'll see lots of characters from Stonemaier games. I got to work with artist Vincent Dutrait for the first time on this game. And I had a lot of fun designing it. I'm having fun with these, even though I'm also working on some big epic games. I've had fun designing smaller, more focused games like Rolling Realms and Smitten. And I'm excited to share this with you and see how you do in this tight puzzle of a 10-minute cooperative game. That brings us to present day and also the future. So I mentioned that Wingspan Asia and the Nesting Box, those are coming up. But we also have kind of our rough 5-year plan. And really, the core of this 5-year plan is to continue to bring joy to tabletops worldwide. That is always our goal. That is our goal moving forward into the future. I think there are certainly things that might change about Stonemaier games in the future. But I can assure you that any of those changes will come with the same goal in mind, that we are here to bring joy to your tabletop. That is sincerely my goal every day, every week, every year, with everything we make and however we make it, however we sell it to you. Our goal is to bring you joy, to bring more people joy and more tabletops joy. A few things that we're hoping to continue to do is also continue to hire and highlight a diverse array of amazing people to make all of our products as eco-friendly as possible, to ensure that our games are as accessible as possible. We've really thought a lot about accessibility over the last year and how we can make our games as accessible as possible. To continue to improve our relationships with our localization partners, because our goal is to bring joy to tabletops worldwide, and a big way that we do this is through our 30+ different localization partners. One of the things that I love doing is collaborating with fans, whether it's like publicly on a product like the Wingspan Nesting Box, or just keeping an eye on what fans are creating, cool stuff that fans are creating for our games, because many of them have become part of our games. Expansions for Scythe. My Little Scythe was a fan creation. We've worked with designers who are fans who created new games for us or with us. All sorts of things. I love seeing what fans create. And even if it doesn't become an official Stonemaier thing, we want to acknowledge that and support fan creations. We want to continue to offer digital versions of our games, whether they're full AI versions or board game arena versions of our games. We want to continue to support a variety of retailers, game cafes, and libraries. That's something that we've really increased our focus on over the last few years. And again, a lot of these are continuing to do things, but doing them better. One of them is continuing to share, to add value to people, to add value to other creators by sharing my thoughts on the Stonemaier Games blog and sharing my design perspectives on the Stonemaier Games YouTube channel and on Instagram. I want to share the love about games in general with people, not just our games. And that's what I do on Instagram and YouTube. I talk about other games all the time. My love for other games, the things that I love about those games. I think that's so important for what Stonemaier Games is all about. To not just make it about us and our things, but also make it about all the different games that are out there, all the amazing designers and publishers and artists. Yeah, so many amazing people in this industry that I'd like to highlight, that I like to continue to highlight through the YouTube channel and on Instagram. And on Facebook Live, Joe. I haven't mentioned Facebook Live much, but I still do a weekly Facebook Live cast every Wednesday at 10 o'clock Central Time, a.m. Central Time, where I just chat with you for an hour. Anyone who wants to pop in, I chat about anything that people want to talk about there. We want to continue to improve our websites and our champion program, and we want to continue to have fun. Like, this is all about having fun. Games are about having fun. So we want to make sure that we're having fun throughout this process as well. As for new initiatives and possibilities, I talk about the possibility of maybe making new IP games, intellectual property games in the future. It isn't a big focus of ours, but if we find the right intellectual property, kind of like Red Rising was for us, we might do that again in the future. We want to continue to work with Panda on eco-friendliness, but also the possibility of maybe bringing some assembly or manufacturing over to the US or over to different regions where we sell games. We sell games worldwide, so it's not just about the US. And yeah, we'll see what happens next. The future is uncertain, but the future is also exciting. We have a lot of exciting things planned. About 3 years out at this point is what we've planned out for different expansions and games. Just a lot of fun stuff to come that I don't want to spoil here. You'll see it when it comes, but we thought about a lot of brands that we have that people are excited about, and different ways that we can continue to expand those brands in ways that people will continue to enjoy, hopefully. So I think that is a definite part of the future. Let me turn this around to you a little bit. Do you have any questions about everything that I've talked about in this very long, brief history of the last few years? Thank you for joining me if you've been here from start to finish. But let me know your thoughts, your questions on different things that we've done over the years. I'm absolutely open to any constructive criticism that you have, any concerns you have, any questions you have, anything that you love that we do that you want us to see us do more of or do it better. Let me know that in the comments below. Whether it's about the past, the present, or the future. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you hope to see from Stonemaier Games in the future. Let me know in the comments below. I really will read all these comments and learn from them, and hopefully continue to grow and improve, because this is about you. We are here to serve you. We're here to bring joy to your tabletop, and I hope to continue to do that for another 10 years. I'll be back before that, I think, to do another brief history, because we've seen how long these videos get. But yeah, 10 years. Hopefully I'll see you again in after 20 years of Stonemaier Games, not just after 10. Thanks.